This is the Misunderstood Guidance Podcast. These are precious minutes you'll never get back.
All right.
Our music was done by my brother-in-law, Andrew.
How long has he been doing that?
I honestly have no idea.
How did he record that? Do you know? Was it all digital? Did he do all of that?
He has like all these instruments. I'm not even going to start to name them.
But
it's a box.
For the part that sounds like a guitar, was he actually playing a guitar?
Yes. Yeah, he bought I was like, hey, can you record some cool intro music so like we don't have any copyright issues? And he bought this box for like $700, which is like half of everything we have in the studio. And you record each piece and overlay it. So, I mean, he has a program. But anyway, it's just, I don't know all the terms. But anyway, yeah.
It's
it has
multi-track recording device.
Yep. So he made it.
Yeah. He did a great job.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Then I threw in the AI talk.
If this becomes extremely popular, he's probably going to ask for a cut of the podcast.
I told him, I said, I need you to text me to say there's no rights.
Oh, yeah? Did he?
No. I need to.
Man.
You know, these people are nowadays.
If he doesn't comment and make a claim on this particular podcast, then we will take that as a sign that he does not expect any
legally
financial remuneration for his contribution to the podcast.
We're going to make this one fast.
Yeah. Okay.
This is going to be...
We got to talk about your car failures.
Yes.
This will be the car.
This is part two.
Part two. So
we have
left
25 minutes.
25 minutes. All right. It's 3:05 p.m. for the listeners at home. That means we need to wrap this thing up by 3:30.
Yep.
Where we left off on the last Ryan Gets a Deal on Cars podcast was we had talked about some of your successes. You had the Camry. Well, you had your first car, which was like the Tercel.
No, that was back in high school. So the Camry is like my first auction
but the
car.
Tercel,
Celica in high school.
I thought you had a Tercel.
That was like my first given car.
Okay, so Tercel to Celica to Camry. Then you had the Acura.
Yeah, I had other cars, but yeah.
We're going to talk about the Acura a little bit today because I think that's a fail based on some recent information.
We could talk about I bought a 1998 Toyota Supra.
Okay.
During the Fast and Furious years.
All right, so Ryan was trying to Tokyo drift.
I always loved Toyotas, and that was like the Ferrari of Toyota.
Yes, the Ferrari.
I mean, if you had the Supra, and I liked them before Fast and Furious, by the way.
The Supra's always been a pretty baller car.
Yeah.
Remember that game Gran Turismo 3 for PlayStation?
Yes.
Or no, I think it was Gran Turismo 2.
Doesn't matter, all of them. Yeah.
But Gran Turismo 2 was when it popped. We always had the Supra. And then they had the Nissan Skyline in that game, where they didn't really have the Skyline. I think in the U.S. they called it the GTR. Those were popular in that game, definitely.
Yeah. So people are going to cringe on this video, but
so
for those that
let's
know
hear the Supra story.
So it was during the auction times, and it was after the Camry. And I was like, I want a Supra. I'm getting one. And I had been...
Was it just like a dream car that you always wanted?
Always wanted it after the Celica. The Celica, I mean, I swapped motors in that thing and did electrical and like got a turbo engine from overseas. The 3S GTE for people who know.
Oh, my goodness.
And because I wanted a Supra. Anyway,
so
finally...
you're trying to turn the Celica into a Supra.
Yeah, or just get it fast, whatever. Yeah. Anyway. They didn't have that engine in the U.S., so you had to get it from Japan and get it wired, and people did it, whatever. So Supra
like
came
those
up.
people who put those Cadillac Northstar engines in the Pontiac
Yeah,
Fieras.
People do everything. Yeah,
or
Corvette motors and whatever.
That was a popular conversion to put the V8 Northstar engine, which that thing produced some horsepower.
Yeah,
and they would put it in a Pontiac Fiero.
Yeah,
I guess it was a relatively easy swap.
Ferrari kits, I mean.
Oh, yeah, they had Ferrari kits. Did I tell the story about the Ferrari kit car down the street?
Yes.
That I hit with the baseball?
No,
I didn't tell you about this?
We'll save it.
I'll let me tell it briefly. So me and my buddy, our neighbor down the street had a friend who would come over all the time, and he had a Fiero kit car that made it look like a Ferrari, kind of. It looked gross and pathetic, but yes. Me and my buddy were out playing catch with a baseball in the street, and I was like, let's practice catching pop flies. So we were throwing the ball high in the air.
Yep.
And honest to God, I cannot remember which of us threw it. It might have been me. I'm not trying to get out of this by saying but one of us threw the ball up in the air, and it landed smack dab in the center of the roof
Oh
of
yeah,
that
and you
guy's
never
car.
told this person, right?
Never told him.
You did tell me this in the
Never
past.
told him. I think we're past the statute of limitations on this one. We just ran.
Yeah.
I, to this day, have no idea how we were not caught.
Yeah,
Because
it was so loud. Had to have been.
Well, and not to mention, we were out in the street playing catch for a while. Someone had to have been like, hey, we saw these two knuckleheads playing catch. Maybe one
Yeah.
of them did it. It clearly looked like a baseball hit it. Huge dent
Yeah.
in the roof of that car. And we just panicked and ran.
Supra. So it was same auction site, Copart. So we got the Camry, and I'm like, always wanted one. And like I said, people are going to cringe. So I paid, I think it was like $12,500 for this car.
Those are expensive cars.
Now they're in the hundreds of thousands. I'm talking like 125K.
For a new one?
No, you can't buy new ones. They stopped building them in 98. Can't buy them anymore.
Oh, really?
But people who have like low mileage, meaning 40, 50, 60K, not modified, etc., they're going for like $150,000.
I thought they still made a Supra.
They remade them, yes, like 2 years ago. But BMW helped with them, and people are anti.
Oh, that's right.
Yes, it's a
basically
BMW.
a BMW.
People are not happy. By the way, Toyota jacked that one up. Anyway, so I had the old one with the fin and everything like that. I bought it for
The big spoiler.
big wing. Yeah, that
Yeah.
came on it. People thought you like put them on there. It's like it actually came with it.
Yeah, that one came with it.
It was the last year. It was a 98. Paid like 13 grand, and it didn't really have much work needed to have done to it. So I mean,
What
ma-
what year was it when you bought it?
I was in the military, so 2000. Well, 7 after the Camry, so 8 or
So
9.
it was like a 10-year-old car.
Oh yeah,
At the time you were buying it, it was a 10-year-old car.
yeah, and people wanted them still, but I mean now they're like gold.
Yeah.
but people still wanted them because Fast Furious came out in what 3, 4, 5, 6, all those years, you know. But yeah, I got it and it worked. It wasn't a turbo, and it didn't have a manual. And we're not gonna make this all about the Supra. Long story short, like I converted it, had it painted,
Converted it to what?
a manual.
You
Turbo.
took out an automatic transmission and put in a manual.
Yes.
Dude, how that is, there's no way that's going to go
So
well.
this is what people don't realize. When you buy a car, well, now it's different probably. When you buy a car, they don't make a car that's just for a manual and just for an automatic, and they change the firewall, which is where all your dashes. It's all the same. So what happens is if you wanted to make it a manual, you would buy the clutch, and you'd buy the little, reservoir, and then you'd buy the lines, and then if you got a manual transmission, they would connect to it. It's that simple. So,
yeah, but there's still something about cracking all that stuff open and putting it back
I did
together
it.
where you're taking a risk.
yeah, I did it.
The factory seals, all the gaskets.
So you have to do it right, and you do buy all those pieces. So you call up Toyota, and you're like, I'm doing this, and you would look at the schematics and go, I need this part, this seal, this, but yada yada yada, and you build it. And
I agreed. I'm sure it can be done well.
Sure.
I'm just saying there's always going to be a little bit of a risk. Just like
Yeah.
if you have a Rolex watch that they take apart, clean,
Yeah.
and put back together.
definitely,
It's just there's no way it's ever going to be the same as it was when it came from the factory.
Yeah.
But I'm not criticizing it at
Yeah.
all. People do mod those cars
it's
all the time.
interesting because like as you start tearing it apart, you're like, oh, like there you see the little holes where there should be a manual
Right.
transmission, like all this stuff.
But then you put when you put the turbo on, was the engine that had the turbo and the not turbo exactly the same? Because
Yes.
turbos put a lot of pressure on pistons. You end up with like gasket leaks and things like that.
well, yeah. So
in some cases
you take out your motor that is not a turbo, and you put in the motor that's a turbo.
Oh, so you put in a whole new motor?
Yes, correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I thought you said you were just adding a turbo.
No,
to the
but you
existing
are
engine.
correct for car people. If you throw a turbo on a car that's not built for it, like a naturally
You're gonna wear that
aspirated
thing out.
Yeah, correct, because the pistons, you're right, are not built for it.
Now, if
It's-
you're just doing that to like a race car that you're only driving like at the track on the weekends,
Yep.
probably not the end of the world.
Yeah.
But if you're doing it to your daily driver, you might cut the lifespan of that engine, especially a Toyota,
you
from
will.
200,000 to 80,000
you will
miles.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, I bought it and I fixed it up, and we'll fast forward. That could be a whole other podcast with the Supra.
For the manual transmission you put on, was it just 5-speed? What was the?
There's a 6-speed. It's called a Getrag engine, which is actually made in Germany. And I mean, all these pieces are like, I bet if you
So
found
it wasn't even a Toyota engine that you put in it?
No, it was a Toyota engine. It was
Okay.
a 2JZTE or whatever the term is. It's been years since I talked like this. And then anyway, the transmission is still for the Supra, but it was a German-made transmission.
Got it.
So if you ever had to get it rebuilt, you had to find people to rebuild them.
Got it.
If you had it rebuilt by Joe Schmo, they wouldn't ever do it right.
So what? Okay, so sorry, I'm asking a lot of questions.
Yeah, it's fine.
Because I want to understand. So what ended up happening? Continue with the Supra, I guess.
So I got it all fixed up, and then over time, I built it the way I wanted to. Anyway, so moving all the way forward, I ended up selling it.
Did you have kids at the time?
No.
No kids.
And when I sold it, I was 27 when I got out of the military.
Okay.
And I sold it to some guy in the Navy. And kind of moving forward, years go by, and I'm like, I want it back, So I reached out to him because there's forums, and it's like when you find one of these cars, it's who has them.
Yeah.
And I reached out, and he's like, it was in a shop, and I was getting work done to it. He's doing the same thing I was doing. The shop burned down.
No way.
And the Supra was in it, burned to pieces all the way to the ground.
That's
insane.
insane.
I know we skipped a massive chunk, but I actually had that car redone. It was painted by a guy who painted Ferraris. Expensive. I mean, paint job was like $8,500. I was a stupid 20-year-old. And but it looked. The engine bay was clean, so when you opened it up, you just saw the engine.
Were you living on or near a military base at this time?
Yeah. I was in Colorado Springs at the time.
Because I think for those who don't live in military towns, you have to know there is an entire economy built around these military towns to take money from dumb kids.
Yeah, I mean, they all Subaru WRX came out at the time, which everyone sees, which is I think still the number one car that gets tickets. That's the number one ticketed vehicle. I think Malibu's next.
Doesn't surprise me. So you go to a military town, and it is every car dealership is Mustangs and pickup trucks.
Yeah.
Tattoo parlors.
Yeah.
A lot of gun stores and stuff.
Pawn shops. Huge.
Pawn shop. Yeah, because people buy this
Huge.
stuff. They waste their money on it. The people know. In fact, my brother was telling me that he was looking to buy a car, and when you would walk into the car dealership, they would ask you what your rank is, and then they would show you cars because they know exactly how much money you make, how much you can finance. They know they know the most car that they can get you legally.
So on that topic, and we're right now in a horrible economy anyway, we actually had trainings that we had to give our soldiers on that.
Not getting fooled, not wasting all your money.
There were dealerships all outside the base. This is true.
My brother has had a pretty high security clearance because he was in SATCOM in the Marines. Sure. He said people could lose their security clearance if their credit and they were in too much debt and stuff like that because they were afraid that they were going to basically take a bribe or have someone find out that they were in trouble and compromise them.
Yeah. So I mean, this is so long ago. I can't remember the exact percent, but it's dang close to the numbers I'm going to say. There was a soldier who went out and got a new Celica. Which was at that time, 2002, I think they stopped making those too. But anyway, 2004, 5, 6, got one and went, and it was 27 or 33% interest.
Unbelievable.
So we had to give our soldiers, because they come back from Iraq, they'd have 40 grand saved up. You didn't buy anything. I mean,
yeah, you're not buying anything. Plus, you're getting all your bonus money for being in an active war zone and stuff like that.
You were buying phone cards. You were buying workout, not where I was. You didn't have Taco Bell. I'm talking overseas. I mean, when you're over there, you weren't buying anything. People were sending you gift packages, and so you buy creatine and all that workout stuff. But when you came back, it was tax free. Kids would have 40, 50, 60 grand saved up.
Yep.
They would go out to these things I'm buying a car, and they didn't want to blow 60 grand, whatever. They worked a year for it. They were giving them 33% interest. So
That's
a lot of
criminal,
times,
man. That is criminal.
A lot of times they couldn't get it revoked, meaning
they signed it.
They signed it, and sometimes they could. So I'm so surprised they didn't take more of an action on that. Meaning
the military,
correct?
Basically cracking down on it,
correct,
and going out because it is all in the local community.
It's just so sad, though.
It's what's the word I'm thinking of? It's
criminal,
immoral. It's using them. It's playing off of their lack of knowledge to screw them over.
And these kids wanted a cool car, right? They're 22. They're trying to find a girlfriend and maybe a wife. They're coming back all this money, and they would just rob them.
Well, and in their defense, hey, man, I just got back from war. They might have seen some stuff that was pretty scary, and maybe they have a feeling of, hey, I only get to live once, and I'm glad to be back, and I'm going to go buy that cool car I've always wanted. I got the money. Might as well go do it.
Yep.
And there's nothing wrong with that, but paying 33% interest is insane.
This still is not about my
Usurious.
salvage cars, but it's
Yeah,
fine. We're
yeah,
teaching
yeah.
people stuff.
Yeah, we're still
But
talking
yeah, I mean,
about
this stuff probably still, it's got to happen now. It's just sad.
It's definitely still happening now. Well, and they even did the same. They even do it with some of these, like, earn your college degree while you're overseas, and some of these universities are like these online universities that have ridiculously garbage reputations. Like that's a BS degree.
Yep.
Like you're gonna get this degree, and when I say BS, I don't mean bachelors of science. I mean bullshit. They're gonna come back and they're gonna find out that someone sold them on this thing. Like, oh,
Yep.
you can get this done while you're overseas. Do it online.
What they were doing,
and they're just extracting money from the GI Bill, basically.
what people would do is they come back, and a lot of soldiers, even now, like if 34 years in the military, whatever, 24, 30, doesn't matter, high amounts of years in the military, and they'll go to this college. I'll just make up a name so we don't get sued one day. But like
Trump University.
Yellow Paper College.
Yeah, Trump University was one.
Yeah, and they go, well, you have 30 years experience. Since you swept floors, you have a janitorial degree.
Yeah, they basically, and you just pay them the money.
Yes, and they convert your life experience. Oh, I changed oil in a Bradley, so you're a mechanic. Oh, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I added numbers. You're a finance major.
Yeah.
Seriously.
And they might not do it for all. They're not going to necessarily just give you the degree, but they'll knock 2.5, 3 years off of it.
Yeah, it
So then you
wasn't.
still
Here's a
have to take-
4. You're right. It's like here's your preliminary
No, but
courses.
hey, you need 120 credit hours to graduate from your life experience. We're going
Yep.
to give you credit for 80 of them.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you dodge bullets, dodgeball.
I think you should at least be able to get out of your physical fitness.
I would hope.
requirements.
But anyway,
legit.
cars.
Cars. So Supra. So Super burned down. Lost
Yeah,
the
burn.
Supra.
I couldn't believe it.
But you didn't lose money on that.
No, I mean, there's more story to it. But I had a
You
guy.
dumped a bunch of money into it that you probably didn't get back.
Correct.
Like you're never going to when you mod
Correct.
those cars.
Yeah, there was when I was overseas, I was paying a guy to work on it, and the quick version is he was just taking my money. So I came back and he
Yeah.
stole over 10 grand to 15,000 of dollars of my money, and I come back and my car's in pieces. But I'm not going to talk about that story right now. So yeah, I mean, stupid decisions growing up. I mean, still making them now as an adult.
I did the same thing. I didn't do exactly the same thing, but I had a 1993 Chevy Cavalier 2-door manual transmission. I think that car had about 90 horsepower, and I bought a K&N air filter for it.
Oh, yeah.
I put a Borla exhaust on it. I spent probably $4,000 on a car stereo for it. Put it on a credit card. If I had taken that money and invested it in the stock market,
Oh yeah, well, you can't live life like that. But you
I-
know how many people
I
would go
know,
to the
but-
buckle in the military?
the buckle.
Yeah, the buckle, because there's just a whole bunch of guys that are like, oh, we're gonna go out to the clubs and all these things, and they go out and they spend all their money on stupid stuff: cars, clothing, gold chains, gold earrings, tattoos. You know. Oh, Larry's sick, by the way. We forgot to tell.
Yeah, sorry, I have a
Pod.
cold. I keep coughing. No,
all good.
I get it, man. Like I'm just saying, if it wasn't that, it would have been something else. No one's thinking that way when they're young.
Well, yeah, I mean, people, even old age folks, like they buy stupid stuff.
The only,
How many
the only
people?
difference is with the military is there is an entire economy designed to extract money from these
Yeah,
kids.
agree.
You know, I don't have. You walk off that base, and it's all sitting right at your doorstep.
Yep, they do it
Strip
on
clubs.
purpose.
Yeah, they know right where to put it.
Yeah.
It's like putting a liquor store in the bad part of town.
Yeah.
Guaranteed
so
money.
Going back to the cars.
Yeah.
I think the thing is, like, if people want to go buy a car at one of these auctions from our last, podcast,
Well, so are there any other cars though?
I seriously, not joking, probably have 23, 24 cars I bought in my life.
So what was the worst one?
I actually bought a snowmobile when I was in Alaska from Copart. It was a stolen Polaris, and the guy grinded off the VIN off the side of it. And then I could kind of it was weird. I did research. It was kind of like Ancestry.com.
Yeah.
And I found what the serial number was, and I got it put like back into the snowmobile. So I mean, I bought everything. You could buy boats on there. You saying what was the worst one?
What was the one that you got hosed on?
I bought. We were talking about this in the last one. I bought a Lexus RC 350, which is like the 2-door sporty one.
Yes.
they-
What's the Toyota version of that? Was it like Celica?
No, people were saying, "Oh, it's like the next Super or something like that."
Okay.
They make an all-wheel and a rear-wheel drive.
Was it convertible?
No.
Okay, I think I know which one you're talking about.
But I bought it, and this is what we're talking about. Is it had like frame damage on it, but they don't tell you about it. So you buy it, and I didn't. I was stupid, didn't pay for the money for it or whatever. And I think by the time I got it, it was like 13 and a half.
Why can't they fix a bent frame? Can't they bend
They're
it back?
they're called uniframes. Like they're
it's
one
all-
piece.
Got it.
So the old trucks and stuff, yeah, you can cut a piece off, weld a new piece on, all those things. But this new car's unibody. That's the term. People are going to shun me.
What? But so so it has a damaged frame. How does that show up in using the car?
So what'll happen is like
you can't get a good alignment on it.
Correct.
You're burning through tires like crazy.
or it's tweaked. So like your moonroof's going to be off, your doors are off.
Got it.
You know, it's tweaked because it's all one piece. And I'm sure there's people who can fix them. It just depends on who it is. Or they'll chop the front of cars off. If you go on eBay, you'll find a front clip, and then you can weld a clip onto the car, and that's dangerous. With the weld's not good. You get hit, the whole front blows off.
Got it.
It's just people don't touch them. They're meant for pieces, parts,
Got it.
engines, wiring harness.
So someone gets in an accident bad enough to bend the frame. That's a salvage part car.
And I actually have family in New York who own auto body shops, and never had to work on my cars, but talked to them multiple times. They are now at a point in the automotive industry where, and we're at time, but we're gonna keep going.
We
Automotive
got 5 more minutes.
automotive industry where it's so specific and scary that if they weld it wrong and there's an accident, they could be sued because they didn't
they're
weld
liable.
it. And they were telling me, like, you know those sensors on the front of your bumper? What's happening is people are there's actually millimeters of paint in the repair manual that you have to spray a certain amount of millimeters of paint. If it's too much, it won't work on the sensors.
Wow.
And then you're held liable. So it's getting to the point where like these automotive places are giving up in a sense, where they're like, I'm not going to be liable for this or
Yeah.
get sued.
Yeah.
And I mean, they could have, by the time you retire, $2 to $4 million saved up, and you get sued and you're done. You just did this for 28, 48 years, and these people are now not doing it. So the point
That's
is
crazy.
they're not touching these. So I actually reached out to people locally and was like, hey, I got this car. I think it has frame damage, etc. And they quoted me either a astronomical amount or they're like, I'm not touching it. Those are the two options. And it was like, either you buy a new car, basically, or you don't fix it.
Man.
So I sold it to a guy, and I'm like, got frame damage, wrote it in the bill of sale. I lost money on the car. I think I lost like $4,500 or $4,000 because I didn't know it had it. And it's like, I can't sell it. No one wants it. And dude, I had so many people come and look at it. People from Chicago. I mean, we're talking 2-3 hours away, 6 hours round trip. Still didn't buy it. So I was like,
Jeez.
whatever, just take it. You know, I'm done with it. So the point is if you don't have someone go inspect it, which we talked about on the last one, you don't pay for that, you could get stuck with that. And you're gambling. Or they fix it good enough so you can't tell it's damaged.
Mm-hmm.
They put a new panel on the side. You buy it because you're in California and it's in New York. It shows up and it's just like falling off, and then you take it off and the whole thing's in pieces.
That's the big risk of buying any used car, though. Like,
Sure.
there's such a. It's no different than flipping a house. You get people who buy a house that needs a lot of work, and they do the bare minimum to make that thing look pretty. So some idiot walks in and says, "Oh, this place looks great," but there's something wrong with it, damaged foundation that
Or they wired it themselves.
Yeah, and you just don't. They're fooling people who don't know what to look for, or you can have someone who does a really good job, but that the really good job is going to be expensive. The problem is the value of that house is what the value of the house is. So the
Yep.
cheaper they can fix it, same thing with the car. The less they can do, the faster they can get it done, the cheaper they can fix it and have it be good enough, the more money they're going to make on it. So
What-
there's a
yeah.
bad incentive out there for people to take these things. So even if you're not going off the auction, and again, this is something you helped me with,
Yeah.
even if you're not buying off the auction, you still should be really, don't let anyone pressure you into buying a car.
Yep.
The market's tough right now. If you don't have time to do the research on it, there'll be another car. There's
Yeah, I think-
always another car. Don't fall in love with a car. Don't just buy it because you're desperate. I looked at 15 cars before I bought Nora's Toyota, and I used a lot of the tips you gave me. I used
Yeah.
Carfax. I ran the VIN number through Google to see if it had gone through any auctions, and those showed all the pictures. There was one car that looked beautiful, and the picture I saw online of that exact same car at the auction, the front end was totally smashed. So do your research when you're buying a used car. Really look into it. In fact, I found out where that car had been. The car I ended up buying my daughter. On Carfax, it showed the dealer's service on it. I called the dealership. They gave me all the information on the car. It's not
Yep.
confidential.
No, it's not like your social.
No, so they told me actually, hey, here are the things that we recommended that they have done
Yep.
that they passed on. And that's
Well-
fine. You don't have to do everything the dealership tells you to do because they're trying to screw you over as well. But they were able to give me a list of things to look out for because they had recommended, maybe a new radiator or something like that,
Well-
and it wasn't done.
A thing that people do and they don't want to do it, and it makes a lot of buyers like, eh. And I'll tell you a story that happened to me is they'll come to your house and they'll look at your Honda, the 2004 that I bought, and they go, I want a mechanic to look at it. And you're like, okay, fine. They send it to the mechanic. He comes back and the mechanic goes, it's $2,400 to fix everything. And you're like, well,
Yeah,
and I
that's
want-
why I'm selling this thing for
that's-
$4,000.
yeah, whatever it is, right?
That's
but
why
that's
this
a
isn't
trick.
a $10,000
That's a
car.
trick that people do. So
Yeah.
they're going to come back and go, it's $2,400. I'll tell you what, take $1,200 off.
Yeah.
And they're going to fix the stuff.
Well, and that's
You know?
the point there too is know what you've got.
Yeah.
So when you're selling a car, I actually think it's in your best interest as a seller to take it to a mechanic first and be like, "What's wrong with this thing?"
If you're going to spend an astronomical amount of money and you're going to have a high interest rate, which is today, you owe it to yourself to have it inspected. You have your house inspected.
Yeah.
Doctor inspects your body before you have surgery.
But as a seller, you should also spend $100, take it to a mechanic.
That's what the cost. It's 80 to 100
yeah,
bucks.
have them look it over. So when that buyer comes to you and is trying to pull one over on you,
Yeah, you're like, hey,
hey, I took this in. I had
and
it
they could have
inspected.
pulled it over on me.
I
don't-
know what's going on with this car, and even list it. There's nothing more. If I'm selling a car or if I'm buying a car, I would tend to trust someone who is like, hey, it's going to need brakes in about 5,000 miles. The front tires are a little bit worn. It's going to need that. Suspension on the front end makes a squeaking sound. That's probably going to need to be replaced at some point.
Yep.
Like, call that stuff out. It doesn't mean the car's not worth what it's worth. It's an old. If it's a used car with 100,000 miles, you're not expecting it to be perfect.
So it's funny too because we were just talking. The last one we did, I've sold a car since then. That was my Acura TLX.
Yeah. We'll wrap up with the Acura TLX.
And then we'll
'Cause this
jump.
is actually a funny story
For you.
For me. Ryan is pissed about this.
So bought the TLX. Larry talked about this. The Christmas tree.
Yes,
had all the lights on.
every light on the dash. You get in that car, and it's like, dude,
And
are we
this-
gonna die?
This is actually a negative too because cars are so smart that they make you look stupid now. And
There's
this
so
is-
many. There's way too many. I remember my brother worked for a Mercedes dealership.
Yep.
So he got a good deal on a Mercedes lease because he worked for Mercedes. So he was leasing a brand new S-Class, very cool car.
Yeah.
The headrest was a powered headrest.
Yep.
So when you press a little button, the headrest would go up or down. How often do you move the headrest? Once, twice, and then you never touch it again. Why does that need to be motorized? Long story short, that stopped working. It was under warranty because it was a lease, so we had it fixed. If he had to pay out of pocket for that, if he owned that car and it was out of warranty, they had to replace the entire seat.
Yeah.
It would have been $2,500.
Yep, 'cause there's
for
a motor in the
for
inside.
a stupid headrest.
Yep.
To your point, all the electronics, they add all these bells and whistles and sensors and everything. They make it, one, crazy expensive, two, impossible to fix on your own.
Yeah.
How do you fix that?
Yeah. There's too many pieces to it.
It's like it'd be like opening up the back of your laptop and being like, I'm going to fix my own laptop.
yeah, it's making a noise and you open it up. You're
Yeah.
like, not touching this.
What the hell are you going to do there?
So
Christmas
the
tree,
Christmas tree
Acura.
lights. So the last time we talked, all the lights were on one of my flooded vehicles, and I fixed. Let me back up. I went to Acura. They said, "Oh, there was because the car was a COVID car. They found like like a mouse might have got in, and
Shoot through some wires or whatever.
yeah, they're like it had to have been a mouse because of COVID.
COVID car isn't like it sat there for a long time.
Sat there for like 2 years, had no mileage put on the thing, basically. So people were looking at like, how can it only have 18,000 miles? It's a 2017. You're
Oh,
like,
they're skeptical that it got.
yeah, I'm like literally did not drive this car. And that's, probably, so take it to Acura, lights are on. They're like, probably a mouse because it sat here. It's happening a lot because people aren't driving their cars. So I went out and they're like, it's probably the wire harness. It's going to be like $2,000 minimum. Could be more, up to like 4, 5, 6, whatever. So I bought the harnesses, did it myself. We're talking months go by and still has the lights on. I'm like, I give up. Like, I mean, I changed the whole harness in the front where the engine was, changed it inside the car, took the whole dash out. So anyway, I listed. I'm like, I'm done. I just want to pay this loan off on this thing. I'm not doing it anymore. Guy comes from Chicago. He says he's Polish, sound Ukrainian. And he's looking at it, and they're all talking. I can't understand what they're saying. Brought his father. And they're like, we'll give you $8,500 for the car, which is like $1,500 off. And I was like, nope, need $9,000. And he's like, meets me in the middle. I'm like, done. I don't want it anymore. Like you get to a point where you're mentally exhausted.
Yeah. Too much heartache. I'm done. Can't do it.
I'm not doing it anymore. So I was like, done. Take it.
Get this stupid thing out of my
I'll
garage.
pay my own money. What stinks though is that, like, it was a good car,
Sorry.
Anyway, let's get to the point. So he's got this computer and it's like on Amazon. It's like $600, and I spent so much money and I was going to buy one. It's like a super duper. Like it's a
diagnostic.
Yeah, it's like an iPad.
Yeah.
And I didn't buy it, and he pulls it out, and I'm like, I just laughed to myself. I'm like, I wanted to buy this thing. He hooks it up, and he's talking, and he's like, let me drive it. It drives perfect. If there was no lights on, you would never have thought something's wrong with it.
Yeah.
Drives it, and I'm like, all I want, since we're selling it to you for $1,000 off, I want you to tell me it when you fix it. He drives home. Now it's 10:30. I'm in bed, and I get a Facebook. It goes bing, and that night, we're talking 2 hours later, he had to drive to Chicago. It was 2.5 hours after. He goes, fixed it, and sends me a photo of it. All the lights are off.
He should have at least waited a week, man. That's terrible.
Let me see if I can actually
that is terrible.
Like, I kind of got the hint, that he was going to be able to fix it just from like talking with him.
He's like, yeah, I know what's wrong with this thing.
Dude, I have to. All I wrote back was glad you could fix it.
Yeah.
He said, I already fixed it. I got a show.
So
this is the dash. No lights on. Look, nothing. Larry, you haven't seen this photo.
No.
No lights on.
Well,
except for
seatbelt light.
Well, because he's got to put his sitting in the car. But every single light was on. He said, I fixed it. I said, I'm so glad you could fix it. And my wife's like, Are you upset? I'm like, I don't know the emotions I'm feeling right now. I was glad it was fixed because like I knew it was something specific.
Yeah, it's nice to be validated in a sense that it can be fixed.
When he hooked it up and they were talking, he goes, "Did you unplug this computer, which was like your car sensor computer?" I said, "Yes." He's like, "Okay." I should have known then that it had.
He knew.
He knew. I should have been like, "I'm not selling it."
Do some kind of factory reset.
That's exactly what it was. Now let's take a step back. Acura couldn't figure this out.
That's ridiculous.
I spent hours and hundreds of dollars, and they were cool about it. They couldn't figure it out. I replaced sensors, wiring harnesses.
So why can this Polish dude figure it out in 10 minutes?
There you have it. So we talked about like people not trusting mechanics not trusting people, and I think it's kind of funny because I'm off my game a bit, because I don't want to spend time working on cars. I have kids now, I want to spend time with them. I'm off my game. I felt so stupid.
Yeah.
But literally, I'm in bed. I'm about to turn my phone off. He's like, I fixed it. Sends me that photo. I'm like, cannot believe it.
All right. So what's we're a little over on time. What's the
so upsetting.
What's the guidance on this one?
If you do go out and you get a car and it doesn't have issues, like my 4Runner, we talked about this. I have 110,000 more miles.
Doing.
Get a Ukrainian/Polish friend.
All the people that you've said fix these cars are like Russians, Ukrainians, Polish.
Alaska. Oh, they were all Russian. Yeah, and they were the best work. They did the best work. You would never know my 4Runner I worked onto it. Great work. Anyway, if you don't know what you're doing, and this even me, I've had 20-some cars. If you don't know what you're doing and you don't want to spend time to like buy these computers and all that, just don't even bother.
Yeah, don't bother.
I spent hours, time. My son had fun putting stuff together with me, but you know what I mean? It's a little dad time. Just don't do it. And I'm getting off my game, as you can tell. So it's just like, if it works, just drive it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a good point. You probably could have just spray painted all that, put some black tape over all those lights and just kept driving.
Just drive it. Don't even, if you have a car,
you can't sell it.
We talked about this like a little bit.
You'll never sell that car.
Yeah. It's like roulette when you're buying a car. If you are not, I'm going to say 100% versed. If you're 90, that's still a 10% chance you're getting a car that doesn't work. If you're not 100%, you're rolling a roulette wheel and you're rolling the ball and it's green, red, or black.
Well,
You know?
so you make a good point here though, because everyone has a different end game.
Everyone does.
So if you're trying to buy one car for you, it's either yes or no. It's either going to work or it's not.
Yep.
You're going to fix it or not.
Yep.
And that's on you. You're eating that whole thing.
Yeah.
If you're running a business, a car dealership, if you're a mechanic,
This car would have worked out perfect.
not only would it have worked perfect, but they're also playing a volume game. They can eat a loss on one.
Yep.
Or
They'll
two.
they'll part it out.
They'll part it out,
Which I couldn't have done.
Which you're not going to do. They
Yeah.
can eat that, so they're going to buy 10 cars, and 8 of them are going to be great.
Yep.
And 2 of them are going to be lemons,
And
and
those-
they'll eat that cost
Yep.
because of the other ones. But if you're just buying a car, it's a 1 out of 1.
Yep.
You can't average it out. You can't average it over volume.
Yep.
So you're playing a different game than they're playing. They can afford to take some risks. If it doesn't work out, they part it out, they sell it for parts, whatever. Or we get back to the other issue, which is they do a sketchy fixed job
Yep.
where they're like, let's just get this thing off the lot. In fact, when I was looking to buy Nora's car, there was there's different types of dealerships, and we all know there's some dealerships that are sketchy dealerships, and they're sketchy dealerships. But I walked in and I talked to these guys, and I was looking at a car they had, and I'm like, well, I'm going to take it to a mechanic and have it looked at. And these guys said right in front of me. So I took it to the mechanic, brought it back, and I was like, yeah, the mechanic says it has a blown head gasket.
Yeah.
And they were like, all right, we're just going to send that one back to the auction.
Yep.
So that one will get bought by somebody else.
And they're not going to know because
And they're not gonna know.
they're Ryan in Michigan and they're down in Tampa.
Yep.
That situation.
They're just going to sell it at the auction.
So yeah, I mean, we've had
these
some
auctions
winners.
can be full of losers, and then the losers don't necessarily get taken out of the pool. They end up back in that pool.
Yeah,
you gotta
we
be careful.
we have the MDX in the garage.
Yep.
And you've seen it. Looks great.
Yep.
And what happened was they labeled it a flood car, and the story was a tree fell on it during the rain. And since the windows broke and water got in the car, whether it's a drizzle, drip, it wasn't even flooded. I got the car, and I'm like, it doesn't stink. I'm like, I've had so many cars. I'm like, this is not a flood car. And you could tell that the window was broken out. The pillar, which is the top above your windows, was all dented in the roof and broken. I'm like, this is not a flood car. I told my wife, no, not a flood car. So fix the window, got the body work done, boom, boom. We fixed that car, and only 21,000 miles on it. We're almost brand new. By the time we were done, we paid like $24,000, $25,000 fixed. The car was $57,000 new. So we got a car, works great. There is nothing wrong with that car. No lights, nothing. For 50% off.
Yeah.
And it worked. It's a normal car.
That's nice, man.
So sometimes you get lucky, and
do
you
get
just have to
lucky.
understand and ask questions, and you figure it out.
I mean, I think my guidance on it would be, if I'm buying a car that's used, buy it from a private party who's actually driven it.
Everyone knows some grandma who's selling a car.
Yes, that's
Everyone.
the thing. Like, use your connections. The Highlander we ended up buying, Nora, was never at auction. Sorry, it actually was at auction. It was like a fleet vehicle for the first 2 years of its life,
Yeah.
but it was always dealer serviced. Actually, some of those fleet vehicles,
Yeah,
it's kind of a catch
Enterprise
22. Like,
sells them Hertz too.
people, depending on the type of vehicle and what type of fleet vehicle it is, people can drive. It's not their car, so they drive it like garbage.
Yeah.
On the flip side, if it's a company car or something like that, people tend to take care of them because all the maintenance is paid for. So
Yeah, but I mean, I love my Dodge Caravans with a little bit of drag time.
yeah, exactly. With a little bit of what?
Drag time,
Drag time.
meaning so people back
every
in the
single light is freaking flooring it off the
back
line.
in the day, they would rent a Mustang and go to the drag strips and drag race the Mustangs or take parts off.
Yeah,
I heard
parts-
this from my grandpa, we're talking old timers here, and they would drag race them and then go return them to
Dude,
Enterprise or Hertz.
That's the oldest trick in the book. Go rent a car that's exactly like yours, take the wheels off, get brand new tires,
Yeah.
put your crappy tires on that
There's
one.
got to
You'll never know the
be.
difference.
I mean, anyway. That's a whole nother discussion. There's got to be ways to tell if people do that now.
I'm sure. They probably put, but are they going to find, when are they going to catch it?
I don't know.
They might
But
not catch it till the 15th guy's
I wonder if they have serial numbers written on at least the motor and the. You know what I mean?
That stuff, I'm sure. But still, again, if they don't look for it, that car might get rented 15 more times than it could have been any of those.
That's
people.
true. That's true. Anyway, all right.
We're way past time. Thanks again for watching, everybody. Appreciate it. Good to see you, Ryan.
All right. You too. Cue the jams.
Yeah, rock and roll.
Andrew's jams.
Burn out.